What's up everybody, Aaron here back with another build video. This time we're going to be going over the Magicka Sorc PVE DPS build for the Homestead patch for Trials and Dungeons. Now unfortunately I had to take down my previous build video due to some copyright infringement issues from one of the songs that I put on there. However, it did improve the build, I did improve the rotations, and we're going to be going over the Magicka Sorc without a pet in a little bit more detail at the end of the video. So improvements, it's definitely a blessing. Let's jump right into it. So when we're buffed, to go over the character sheet, we're sitting at 49.4k max Magicka, 18.4k max health, 2500 spell damage, and 62% spell critical. Of course, all of our points are into max Magicka. I chose High Elf to be the race for this character. However, Dark Elf does produce slightly more damage. Now, the difference in damage is almost unnoticeable from Dark Elf to High Elf. However, High Elf does have better sustain, which is why I recommend and prefer High Elf. We're using the Thief Mundus Stone to boost our spell critical chance. We're using the max health and max Magicka food. I'm a vampire for the 10% max Magicka recovery passive from the vampire skill tree. And of course our potions are always the same on Magicka classes, which is the Essence of Spell Power. Gives you Major Sorcery, Major Prophecy, and Major Intellect. Let's get into the skills. So our front bar looks as follows. Inner Light is our first skill, 5% max Magicka from the skill itself, plus 2% Magicka and Magicka recovery from the Mage's Guild ability passives. Next is Volatile Familiar. This is a really powerful skill this patch. That it got a huge buff. What it does is as soon as the pet is summoned, anytime you activate the skill, it does shock damage every 2 seconds for 8 seconds. Not only is it powerful single target, but also really powerful AoE. The only bad part about it is some fights you're not able to use the pet. For example, hard mode A, last boss, it's pretty tough if you have a lot of melee characters. Not going to be able to use the pet because of the chain lightning that it's going to cause. Some fights, when you use pets, it messes up ad pulls, slows down your time, so you have to be very careful of when and where you use it. Next is Mage's Wrath. Mage's Wrath is a really nice execute. It also does AoE to all the targets around whatever you're hitting when the target falls below 20%. So after 20%, this becomes your main spammable. Next is Crystal Frags. Only use this skill, of course, when it's procced, and it does a ton of damage when it is procced. Lastly, Force Pulse is our main spammable skill. Now, we're using the skill as a damage filler as well as Crystal Frags, and we're also using the skill to proc our Crystal Frags. Make sure your dots are kept up 100% of the time. Make sure your pet is active, and then you're spamming Force Pulse. Lastly, Shooting Star. That's our main single target small area ultimate. When you know that there's going to be a target, a boss is going to be still for about 12 seconds. You want to use this ultimate when all the ads are compact. You want to use this ultimate. It does more damage. It also returns ultimate back to you, so you're going to be able to generate ultimate faster, do a ton of damage. But make sure you use this in single target long fights. On our back bar, we're using Empowered Ward. Now you can use Hardened Ward if you want a bigger shield, Harness Magicka if you want to get more resources back. I am one person that runs Empowered Ward, and as you can see on the bottom, it also grants Minor Intellect to you and your nearby allies, increasing the magic recovery by 10% for 10 seconds. So this is a nice skill to use for just one person in your group. Next is Summon Volatile Familiar again, just to keep the pet active. If you take it off your back bar and put on another skill every time you bar swap, it's going to deactivate the pet. So you want to have this double barred all the time. Next is Blockade of Fire. Whether you have a Maelstrom Staff or you don't, this has to be up 100% of the time. This is a really strong, powerful dot, and it does a ton of AoE damage. You want to keep this up in ad fights, boss fights, whatever it is. Next is Liquid Lightning. Again, a really powerful dot. Also does AoE damage, so you want to keep this up 100% of the time. Daedric Prey is my next skill. Now, for fights where you're not able to use your pet, Daedric Prey does not do as much damage as the Haunting Curse. However, when you're able to use your pet, I use Daedric Prey. And what the skill does is, if you can read the bottom, while the curse is active, your pets deal an additional 55% damage to the target. except Storm Atro. We don't have to worry about that too much because we're not using the Storm Atro. However, your pet with this Daedric Prey up, it does a ton of damage. And the skill itself is pretty powerful as well and does AoE. So make sure you keep this up as much as possible. Lastly, our ultimate on our back bar is Fiery Rage. Now, when you know that there are a lot of adds, it's a big area, it's a short bursty fight, you want to use this skill. Again, for longer, more standstill fights, more stationary fights, you want to use Shooting Star. That's going to do a lot more damage. But again, if there's a big AoE, there are lots of adds around, you need to cover a big area with your damage, you want to use Fiery Rage. That's it for the skill. Let's go over the gear. So on our front bar, we're using a Lightning Sharpened Aether Staff. You can also swap this out for Moon Dancer, and you can also swap this out if you don't have Moon Dancer or Aether for a Sharpened Maelstrom Staff. However, the thing to make sure is that it's sharpened. Sharpened does the most amount of damage. Some people for boss fights prefer switching to Inferno Staves. I haven't seen a major damage difference between Lightning and Sharpened Staff, and most boss fights do have adds on them, so I prefer keeping my Lightning Staff on. However, some of the best Sorcs in the game, such as Yolo, Tino, they do switch to Sharpened Flame Staffs for more single target damage. So it's up to you. I prefer keeping my Lightning Staff on. On our back bar, we're using a Maelstrom Inferno Staff. Again, if you don't have a Maelstrom Inferno Staff, you can use an Aether, a Moon Dancer, or even a crafted Sharpened Flame Staff. Make sure your back bar staff is always Sharpened Flame. That is a must. And then of course, our front bar staff has to go with our jewelry. So because I'm using Infallible Aether, I'm going to use 3-piece Aether jewelry. If I was using a Moon Dancer staff, I would use Moon Dancer jewelry. If you don't have an Aether or Moon Dancer staff, I would probably go with Moon Dancer just to for you to have a little bit more max Magicka. Our 2-piece monster set is a Lambert still. It's very, very powerful. We keep it proc 100% of the time with our Liquid Lightning Blockade down and all of our flame and lightning damage that we do. 1 heavy, 1 medium, both divines of course. Now this is where the change happens. Now we're using Necro instead of Burning Spellweave when we're able to use pets. So in any fights that I'm able to use my pet, I'm going to be running 5-piece Necro, which gives you max Magicka, max Magicka, max Magicka, and more max Magicka when your pet is active. However, again, some fights don't allow you to use that, so we would switch back to our old setup, which would be Burning Spellweave. And for the fights that don't allow you to use pets, we would simply take this off and put on Bound Aegis on both bars. And of course, if you're not able to use a pet, you have no use for Daedric Prey, so you have to switch out Haunting Curse. But we'll go over that a little bit later in the video. So that's pretty much it for the skills. Let me equip my awesome pet back on. Let's go over the champion points very quickly as well. So Green Tree is very, very simple. We have 100 points into Magician and 100 points into Arcanist for the Magicka recovery, Magicka reduced spell cost, and just overall better sustain. Our Blue Tree, we have 100% into Elemental Expert, 24 into Elfborn. Crit got a slight nerf this patch, so it's not as important to have any points into Elfborn. And we have 75 points into Thaumaturge. Now it's very, very important that you have 75 points in the Ritual Tree because of the Exploiter passive. Increase your damage against off-balanced enemies by 10%. Now off-balanced is procced by Lightning Blockade, Rearming Trap. Many things in Trials cause an enemy to be off-balanced. So make sure you have 75 points into Thaumaturge to get the Exploiter passive. This is absolutely a must in Trials. Next, the Red Tree is always changing. Now, I have 100 points into Elemental Defender, 47 Hardy, and the rest of my points are in Spell Shield because I was running Vet Maw, Vet AA. I use this for most Trials, and this is a pretty safe CP allocation. However, if you're gonna do Hellra or Sanctum, I would probably go 100, 100, or 175, maybe put some points into Thick Skin. Again, the red tree really depends on what you're running, what content you're doing, so it's always changing. So it's up to you what you do in the red tree. We went over the skills, went over the gear, went over the champion points. Now let's go over the pet Sorc rotation in a little bit more detail. So you always want to start the fight by making sure that your food is active. Make sure your pet is active. And we're going to pop a pot before we go in the fight. Now, this is a single target rotation, of course, so imagining that this robust target skeleton is a boss, we would cast Inner Light, fully charged heavy, and start with ultimate. Then we go into our rotation, which is Liquid Lightning, Blockade, Daedric Prey. We swap bars, use the pet, and we're going to do 5 weaves. 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, the slowed down rotation would be Liquid Lightning, Light Attack Blockade, Light Attack Prey swap bars, Light Attack Pet active, and then we do 5 weaves. 1, 2, now you see my frag proc, so I do Light Attack proc frag, 4, and it proc again, so I do another frag. In real time, the rotation would look something like this. So pretty simple, not too complicated. We're using ultis on cooldown on every single boss fight. So again, the rotation is Liquid Lightning, Blockade, Curse, Swap, Pet, and then 5 weaves, whether it's Force Pulse or proc Crystal Frag. This rotation will make sure that all your dots are staying up almost 100% of the time. However, your Curse, your Daedric Prey does fall off slightly for 2 seconds at the end of the rotation. However, keeping this up 100% of the time is almost impossible in a real boss fight, so you will have this drop off at times. It's not a really big deal, it's not a really big DPS loss. Now, the rotation is going to change a lot when you're not able to use your pet. So again, for fights where you're not able to use your pet, we're changing a couple of different things. Number 1, we're obviously taking off the pet and putting on Bound Nagus. 2, you would use the Haunting Curse morph of this skill. You would not be using Daedric Prey. And let's go over that rotation quickly right now. So just to go over the non-pet Sorc in a little bit more detail, the few things that we've changed again are, 1 is our gear that we're wearing. We're no longer wearing Necro. We're now wearing Burning Spellweave because we can't have a pet active. Number 2 is we changed the morph of Daedric Prey to Haunting Curse, because again, this does more damage without the pet active. And the third thing that we did was we switched places of the Curse and Mage's Wrath. So now we have our Execute on our back bar and we have Curse on our front bar. Now the rotation is a little bit more complex. Don't pay attention to hydrating. This is simply so I can sustain in the fight a little bit longer because the rotation is a little bit longer as well. So here's how it would work. We would start the rotation with Liquid Lightning, Blockade, then we apply Curse. Then we do 5 weaves. Once we've done 5 weaves, the next rotation is going to be Liquid Lightning, Blockade. First we do 5 weaves. Then the Curse would explode right about here, and we reapply. And the third rotation, we don't apply Curse. We would simply do 6 weaves after Liquid Lightning Blockade. After the third rotation's over, we restart. So, just to go over it again slowly. Liquid Lightning, Blockade, Curse, 5 weaves. Next rotation number 2, Liquid Lightning, Blockade, 5 weaves. There's the Curse exploded, now we use the Curse. And last rotation, Liquid Lightning, Blockade, and now we don't apply Curse, we just do 6 weaves. And then we restart. So, full time, I'm just going to get a little bit of Magicka. As you can see, the rotation is slightly more complex. It does require you to pay a little bit more attention to detail, a little bit more attention to your buffs and track the time of the curse. However, if you can get it down, it's also really, really high damage. So real time, this is what it would look like. Inner light, fully charged heavy, into ultimate, and then we start liquid lightning, blockade, curse, 5 weaves, swap bars, liquid lightning, blockade. Now this is the second rotation where we apply curse at the end of our rotation. After 5 weaves, there's the explosion. And now this is the third rotation where we don't apply curse at all. We just weave 5 to 6 times. And then we restart. Liquid lightning, blockade, there's the curse explosion, and 5 weaves. And so on and so forth. So again, there are 3 parts to this rotation. You want to make sure that you don't overlap your curse. You let it explode twice before you use it again. That's the tricky part. If you can get that down, you're going to do a ton of damage with this rotation as well. Almost as strong as with the Sorc rotation. So I hope this video helped you out. I hope it showed you the 2 ways of playing Magicka Sorc this patch. Now, do I have the best build and the best rotation in the world? I don't know. Probably not. I'm sure there are much better Sorcs than me out there. However, I've used this Sorc with these rotations for everything that I've done in this game. That being Hellra, there's a Sorc, AA, there's a Sorc, even Dragonstar. This works in all content in the game. So again, practice this rotation, use this rotation, and make sure that if it helped you out, you enjoyed it, to hit the like and subscribe button. Again, thank you so much for watching, and hope we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.